it's Norton York here from RSL Awards. I am thrilled to be here online today with three wonderful people that I haven't seen for too long. Richard Beadle, Matt Prime and Sam Winwood. And at RSL Awards, we are always looking to celebrate excellence. And I'm so delighted that today we're doing that again with three of the UK's most brilliant music business creative talents. All three of Rich, Matt and Sam studied pop music as part of their journey to music industry success. And each of their careers demonstrates how a pop music course can be part of supporting their talent and hard work and with their formidable imagination and creativity. So it is with great pride today that I'm looking forward to presenting Richard and Matt and Sam each with our highest honour, which is our RSL Awards Fellowship. So it's Norton York here from RSL Awards, and I'm delighted to be here online with Richard Beadle. Richard has become one of our leading musical directors in London and around the world. Most recently, thousands of people every night have been seeing him and hearing him conduct the orchestra and lead the singers at the Victoria Palace Theatre in London for the brilliant Lin-Manuel Miranda's Hamilton as musical director, which will hopefully be back on stage later in 2021. Richard has also worked as musical supervisor, orchestrator and director for a host of West End shows, including Calendar Girls, Grease and The Bodyguard, where he's also the musical supervisor all over the globe. Richard's composed the score for the recent Gareth Malone documentary, The Choir, and he's also worked on ITV's Victoria and on the BBC talent show Pitch Perfect. Perhaps the role which I covet most, though, amongst Richard's many achievements, is in 2018 he was the chairperson of the UK jury for the Eurovision Song Contest, which one day I hope to be. So it's probably not the greatest of your achievements, Richard. It's one which I love. So with all of these achievements and many more that I haven't had time to mention, as a piano player, as a conductor, as a musical director and a composer, all of these have combined to enable Rich to rise to the forefront of the UK's musical theatre world. And for this achievement, I am delighted to award Richard Beadle our highest honour of our RSL Awards Honorary Fellowship. And here it is.
Thank you, Norton. I'm very humbled and feel very old, but thank you very, very much. It all started with you guys a long, long time ago.
Hi, it's Norton York here. I'm RSL Awards chairman. I'm delighted and thrilled to be here with Matt Prime. Matt started out in the music industry studying commercial music and quickly in the 1990s moved into being a session player with a host of 1990s pop artists. Once established as a performer, he then developed a brilliant career as a songwriter, producer, performer and collaborator with some of the UK and America's leading stars from 2000 until right up to now. His songs and productions show his skill and artistry in creating a catchy hook, a great melody, a wonderful beat, a clever lyric, all to craft songs for music industry legends, as well as established artists and breakthrough acts. His discography reads simply like a who's who of UK and American pop from the last 2 decades, with tracks from his earlier days with Kylie Minogue and Will Young and Lulu and Victoria Beckham, to CeeLo Green, Eliza Doolittle, Ollie Murs, Trey Songz, Sam Smith and Charlie Puth, to more recently working with Jason Derulo, Sophie Ellis-Bextor, James Blunt and even Sir Cliff Richard himself. So for his artistic and commercial success and achievements as a songwriter, producer, performer and collaborator, I'm delighted today to present Matt Prime with our highest RSL Awards honour, our Honorary Fellowship. Congratulations, Matt.
Thanks so much, Norton. Thank you, that's great.
Good. So, hi, it's Norton York, Chairman of RSL Awards. I'm delighted and thrilled to be here today with Sam Winwood, to whom we are making an award today. Sam is a music business creative executive, and he started out studying commercial music with me, which was a great honour for me many years ago. Started out as a drummer as well as someone with a passion for the music business. After his studies, he moved on to scouting roles in A&R, both with MCA and then BMG Records, before his first full-time A&R job at Sony Soho Squared. At Sony, he developed particularly the career of bands including Top Loader and Reef, before having a brief move into artist management, and then he went to work for the then fledgling music publishing company Cobalt Music. For the next 16 years, Sam was instrumental in building Cobalt, and most recently in his role as Senior Vice President Creative there. At Cobalt, Sam was a key player in the creation of a new type of music company, which challenged and innovated beyond the old norms of how artists traditionally signed to record companies, and taking advantage of the opportunities that digital technology offers artists to control more of their own commercial careers. Cobalt's artist roster now spans eras and territories to represent some of the world's leading artists, literally from Elvis to the Foo Fighters to Paul McCartney. And as Senior Vice President, Sam also personally worked with artists from Sam Fender to Jax Jones, Rudimental, Fraser T. Smith and Pablo Bowman. And Sam may not know this, but over his career, bands such as Reef, artists like Fraser T. Smith and Rudimental are all in fact graduates of pop music courses as well. So probably unknowingly, he's signed fellow pop music graduates and alumni. And so for Sam's commitment to developing the artistic and commercial potential of songwriters, which continues today in his new role as head of creative in the new boutique music publishing company 235 Music Publishing, I am thrilled to award Sam Winwood our highest RSL awards honour, our fellowship.
Thank you, Norton. It's an honour. Thank you. I'm really honoured.
What can you all remember about why you decided to come on a commercial music or pop music course when you were youngsters? Because it wasn't the traditional route into the music industry at that stage in any shape or form. And just I remember, what do you remember getting out of it? Really, I don't know who wants to kick off. But...
I can kick off if you want.
Wonderful, thank you.
For me, it was a case of I knew that I wanted to work and go, play music and be in the music business in one way or another. And when you're reaching university age, at that time there was very little route into it other than certainly education wise. And so when I heard about the course at Westminster as it was then, it just seemed like an obvious thing to do. And the most important thing for me was meeting like-minded people. I think that is one of the things that is the most valuable thing you can get out of a music course is meeting people who have similar ambitions and similar wants and drive to yourself. And actually, on that note, one of the great takeaways from the course was going into a business where you already knew a few people and you already had a network built up, because so many people from the courses already started straight away in the business. So obviously the things that you learned while on the course were really important, but actually just meeting like-minded people was the biggest, most important bit of it.
Yeah, I can see that. What about you guys, Matt and Rich?
Well, I started off as a classical pianist as a child before I could remember. I was playing Bach and Beethoven, and then teenage years kicked in and pop music arrived for me, and that became sort of my greater love. And a bit like Sam said, I didn't know where to go for that sort of thing. I didn't want another period of time of going that next stage of classical music. I wanted to take on this new thing, this new passion I had. And this course came from nowhere. I was going to go to a regular music college, and then suddenly the idea of this that fused a traditional music education with something that felt freer and felt more new and nuanced. And there was something about being the first year to do it, which felt we were sort of pioneering something. And as Sam said, it was the first day I walked into the room, I remember seeing people that felt like my people, that felt like we come from similar but disparate backgrounds as well. We had some people who were singers, producers, DJs, musicians. It was a cross section. It wasn't just classical reading piano players or instrumentalists as I'd known before. It was guys who played in bands and girls who were producing and singing and playing guitar or whatever it may be. And it just felt like I wanted to continue my education, but I didn't want to stay in the world I'd been in. And this came along, and it made total sense to me. And I had a ball.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, I did too, actually. How about you, Matt?
Yeah, I think these guys have said a lot of it. I mean, I think for me the main thing, aside of what Sam and Rich have said, I think musically, I kind of left school thinking I knew quite a lot of music and having quite a sort of mental music catalogue in my head floating around. When really all I really had in there was sort of just probably 10 years of chart music and a couple of Beatles LPs, you know. And I think what the course brought to me was a much broader spectrum of knowledge of all sorts of genres of music I hadn't ever paid any attention to, which was massively beneficial kind of after 3 years of doing modules in like 20 different genres, and some of which I never thought I'd love and ended up loving, and we created bands out of. We love them so much. You know, me and Sam had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Created a band off the back of your Latin module.
Oh, God.
The Cuban Hills. I went round for at least 2 or 3 years. But in all seriousness, I think I went when I left. I just wanted to be a writer and write. I didn't care what lane it was in, and I just took every opportunity in TV and film and pop, and theatrical stuff as well. And it's that position you're at when you leave university, just to get any opportunity possible. And I think to have that breadth of being a part of all those different genres and being in bands and it was massively beneficial to be to then be thrown into the world and adapt to any situation in any genre in any lane. That was a massive help.
Something, just hearing you say that makes, I'd love to hear all your thoughts on that I wasn't going to ask, but now I will, is it seems to me that one of the things that makes British pop music and music theatre succeed has been its ability to produce hybrid music styles, and that's actually, to me, it seems that's actually quite a signature for British creativity and music making. I wondered whether you agree.
Yes. I think certainly from the industry point of view, we've always been incredibly grateful in the UK to have the BBC radio stations, because we're probably one of the only countries in the world that has a national, certainly Radio 1 and 1 Extra and 6 Music to a certain extent. We have national radio stations that actively support new music, and hardly anywhere else in the world, certainly the US, does not have that. And so when you're a new artist or a new songwriter or whatever, trying to break into the business, you're almost kind of obliged to follow what's gone before and stick to a kind of quite a narrow kind of diagram of how you can make your records. And you know, and there isn't that kind of avenue to kind of be experimental and try new things. But because we have effectively a government-funded radio station here that isn't relying on commercials, there is that chance and that outlet, and that's what really has driven kind of British music over the last probably 30-40 years to be kind of pushing the envelope all the time. Of course, you know, as we move into an age where, you know, things are going online more than ever, that may change for the better around the world, but certainly it's given the UK a very good kind of leg up, I think, on the world scene.
Yeah, good. I don't know if the others, Rich and Matt, have thoughts on that.
No, I need to echo what Sam said. I only noticed that actually on my first trip to America, becoming massively aware of how radio is so different and how fortunate we are in England, like Sam says, just to have stations that just play music from different genres, a bit of this, a bit of that, and whereas in America everything's so streamlined. It's a rock station, it's a pop station, it's an urban station. Yeah. And I think Sam's dead right. I think that's definitely a contribution to, like you say, getting more of a hybrid
And obviously Hamilton is a whole new hybrid, Rich.
Oh yeah, I mean Hamilton's changed the game. It's the sort of the mantle of musical theatre has moved back and forward over the years. It was always an American genre, and then in the 70s we sort of took it back in many ways with the invention of the rock musical with Jesus Christ Superstar, with those sorts of things, and then it's sort of swung back and forth over the years. But what Hamilton's done to a musician like me, and like us, people who come from the background of Westminster and rock school, is allowed musicians who work in a genre other than traditionally writing a song down on a piece of paper, handing it to an orchestra, and it sounding like musical theatre. Songs, and there's a license now for songs and structures within theatre to be based on what we've grown up with in our generation, which is pop, rock, hip hop, soul, rap, fusing all these things together, American styles, British styles, European, Latin styles, all within one piece. And to echo what Sam and Matt are saying about radio stations, where we sort of really, if you go from 1 to 6 on BBC Sounds, you can find anything you want in the world, whether it's classical, whether it's hip hop, whether it's something brand new that's never been done before. And Hamilton certainly felt like it did that you can go and see the show or listen to it, and without knowing you're learning about Latin music, you're learning about rap and hip hop, and not to be scared by any of those genres or things I might not listen to, because you suddenly hear that, and under the umbrella of musical theatre, which also traditionally has scared some people in our world, that word, I know from experience, that word to pop rock musicians can put people off. Yeah. And I think suddenly it's opened a door where you can go into it and go, no, this sounds like what I hear on the radio. It's also telling a story, and it's just freed up the industry to be able to tell stories that feel modern rather than by necessity sounding like a throwback because they previously had to sound a certain way.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. So you've all worked with hugely successful artists in different ways, and I wondered whether through that experience you would have been able to identify things about successful artists and how they make music, either how they write music or perform, which marks out those that may achieve more success than others. Are there distinctive characteristics? I don't want to put words into your mind. I know what I think about this, but I just wondered whether you were able to articulate that, because for youngsters who might want to pursue a career, it would be interesting to hear your thoughts on that, whichever way you think.
Well, from an A&R point of view, there's a certain amount of things you always look for. Obviously, talent, and actually, even though you may not notice it, most of the artists that have success are extraordinarily talented. Someone like Ed Sheeran, for instance, never gets credit for what an amazing singer he is. Ed Sheeran is one of the best singers in the world. He never gets credit for that. But obviously, but most of them are fantastically good vocalists, very good songwriters. So talent is the first thing. Really important is drive and passion. I'm sure all three of us meet people that are very talented that just don't want it, and it's a very tough business. And you need that drive, because at the end of the day, especially if you're an artist, you're the one driving the car. Everyone else can help, but you're the one driving it. And if you don't want to, then it won't go anywhere. Doesn't matter how much people push you. And then I think more importantly than ever, I think the third thing is know who you are and be brave enough to be that person and that artist. So many artists don't know what they should be or what their sound should be, and they end up sounding like everybody else, or they feel like they should sound like other people, and the public can smell that a mile off. And actually, the public are really good at accepting people that are different and are trying to say something different from the norm. And I think they believe in that much more than we give them credit for. And so it's really important that you kind of as an artist, or as a songwriter and producer for that matter, that you put your own stamp on things and create your own sound and be who you are. That's really important. Make yourself stand out from the crowd a bit.
Brilliant. That's great.
And all the successful artists that I've ever worked with have all had all of those things.
Yeah. So when you're looking at signing artists as a publisher, that's, I guess, a strong part of what you're looking to find. Obviously, you're interested in the songs principally, but
yeah. But I mean, but of course, that's why it's always so important to meet the people. And of course, that's what's making it very difficult at the moment, is you can't meet the people. Because yes, I mean, you can hear a song, but you want to know what the person's like as well, because that goes an awful long way. Yeah. In fact, it's incredibly important. And so, yeah, it's as much about the person as it is about the song and the talent and the music. I mean, it's a whole package, and that's why there's so few successful ones, because you almost need to tick every box in most cases.
Yeah.
I think the majority of any, the majority of anybody I've worked with at that level, you walk into a room and, in my case, sit around the piano with them, and I would say 95% of those people, you would never know they were who they were unless you knew. They don't walk in with an air of, I am a superstar songwriter or artist or performer, whatever it might be. And I think there's a humbleness you can you get to smell how real that is or not. There's the falseness of that, which is, I know full well who I am, and you should know it too. And there's the reality of people who just go, I'm here to do something new. I'm working on a new project, whether it's, in my case, songwriting or producing or theatre, casting or rehearsing. And if you retain that knowledge that for all your success, you may have sold 50 million records, but you may be entering, with me, then you may be entering a different part of the business or a different part of the genre of music that isn't as familiar to you, just as I might be working with you without the knowledge of or the experience in your side of the business. And being able to go, I'm starting again. I've sold 50 million records, but here I am starting again doing this discipline. What is this? And the majority of people I've worked with at that level have that, and they are willing to start a new part, a new branch of what they're doing. And to echo what Sam's saying, you got to practice. It's the obvious first thing that anybody will say, but you've got to be good enough at your craft and not try to be like the person you want to be like. You may grow up saying, I love Elton John, I want to be Elton John, or you may decide I want to be Ed Sheeran, or I want to be Beyonce, but then accept the happy transition that you become that next thing. And when Beyonce came along, she will have had her references back to the generation before, but you couldn't pin that on Beyonce now. You could probably say, well, she's probably influenced by these 10 people, but it's not like she is the new version of X. And I think it's important to have your own identity and not feel, because I think sometimes we can feel we've not done as well as we've hoped we might. If you wanted to grow up being Elton John and you're not Elton John, well, then I failed. Yeah, but you're not. You're the new thing. And due to the way the business has changed, it will never be the same again. You'll never be an Elton John, because that world has gone, and our new sort of brave new world of streaming or whatever it might be, the different ways publishing and record deals are working, and radio and TV and live performance, you become a new entity just by the nature of the generation you live in. So I think it's important where you fit in that, and to from my experience, allow yourself to be something different from what's come before, and try to own that with confidence without it, bordering on arrogance.
Yeah, brilliant advice, Rich. What about you, Matt?
I think these guys have said it all. I think anything to add is there's definitely as Rich says, there's a humble but sort of fearless attitude always by the most successful artists I've worked with, and just that sort of it's the fact that they're going to be successful is unquestionable. There's no it's when it happens, not if. There's a complete belief, self-belief, but not necessarily narrow. Most of the time, not an arrogant one.
Yeah.
I think the other thing to say is that they, like Sam said, they just by default they know exactly. Some artists, you tend to know the ones that may not work, it may not happen for them because they get signed. They think that's it. They think they've arrived and that's it. Over to you, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think the ones that go on to do amazingly are the ones that have complete awareness that is really just the starting point, and they are still very much have a vision of exactly how they want to be styled, how they want their videos to look, what they want their lyrics to say. They're not leaving anything up to anyone else apart from themselves.
Yeah.
I think that's fundamentally important. I mean, these are just the things that I've seen in artists that go on to do brilliantly. They completely control everything.
Yeah.
Not in a me way, but in just in a natural default way. They know exactly their vision is completely absolute, and it's not going to be compromised, and they know exactly what they're going to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So they know who they hope their audience is going to be, and what they want to present to their audience.
Yeah, and I think it's good sometimes to have some resilience to. I mean, I don't want to get in trouble for saying this, but I think it's good to have resilience to sort of what a label may stamp down as this is our opinion, this is how it's going to be. A lot of artists sometimes, if you kind of say how they want to be, and they usually end up in some sort of compromise, but it's usually for the better, and it's usually those are the ones that tend to do pretty well.
From an industry sort of side of the table, one of the things that we always say in A&R, whether it be records or publishing, is if you're having to tell the artist what you think they should do, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
No record company, no A&R person wants to tell the artist what to do. They want the artist to be telling them, this is what I'm doing. I mean, everyone knows that that's the best, scenario. Yeah. So Matt's right. Just one other thing that I think none of us have mentioned yet, and it's considering we've got two great composers here, actually songs. It's the one thing that's never changed in 50 or 60 years of popular music. The song's got to be great.
Yeah.
And until you've got the great song, you've got nothing.
In addition to what we said about being talented, being appreciative of your abilities, and being humble and modest as well as confident and everything else, I think something that isn't said very often, but which is I feel very strongly about, is know what you're not good at. Be honest about what you can and can't do. I always use the joke, I wanted to be an astronaut and I wasn't good enough, so I didn't do it, because if I tried, I would have been a failed astronaut. I could do one thing and I tried to do it and I got away with it for a bit. But the amount of times I see singers or musicians or whatever it might be in a room, and they're following that dream, because it's very much the mantra these days of social media is follow your dreams. You can do anything you want if you try hard enough. And I think a healthy dose of, yes, you can try as hard as you like, but have a self-awareness that this ain't for you, whatever that might be, whatever part of the industry that, and I know I have it. I wanted to be a singer-songwriter, and I pushed and pushed and pushed. And one day I went, Rich, you're not a singer who's going to sell records, so channel it elsewhere. And I want to be able to say that to performers, musicians, whatever it might be, of knowing your abilities and being proud of them and being good at it, but also know your limitations and move away from that road, because that road ain't for you and this one is, and go excel in that one.
So coming back to the song, which Sam mentioned, I was just hoping to talk to you guys about what advice you would give to young songwriters. It's the perennial problem. What advice would you give to young songwriters about creating their own new songs, and perhaps some tips that help you, or things you've observed from others' songs or songwriting, which can help create or foster the circumstances of success, because in the end it's down to individual creativity.
Well, I think as far as the co-writing goes, that is, I think, because that's something that I the show reel I'd done had largely just been me by myself in my bedroom, which is the same sort of story for a lot of people, especially at the moment.
Yeah.
And I think so. Co-writing was something that was fairly new, but especially when it comes to your first opportunities about you getting in a room with artists. And I think the biggest advice there is you can never ever, especially when you're at the beginning and you're kind of on the ascent as a songwriter, you can never ever over prepare. I think preparation is absolutely everything, because so often especially when the label or someone, you've got a brief has filtered in from somewhere, and it's like, right, we want an up tempo with this artist, and they arrive, you've prepared an up tempo, you've sketched out a title and a track and a rough chorus melody, and you think you've nailed it, and they turn up and they say, I've spent all month writing up tempos, I want to do a ballad, and you got nothing. And the worst thing in a writing situation is, and it's not for some people, it works great, but I think for a lot of people, the worst thing in a writing situation is you're sitting there, two people in a room with nothing. No one's got any prepared nothing.
Yeah.
And that's awkward, you know. And it's not. Sometimes magic comes out of it, but more often than not, it doesn't. So I think preparation is ultimately everything.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important to always have loads of ideas, especially if in an artist co-write opportunity. And I think have the ballad up your sleeve, have the mid-tempo up your sleeve, have 70 titles up your sleeve, loads of concepts, loads of melodies, tons of stuff, you know, just voice memos everywhere. I think never ever presume that what the brief that's been filtered to you is anything like what you'll be doing on the day.
Yeah.
And I think there's lots of sayings in songwriting, but one that is definitely true is that I think I'm right. It's success equals. Success is where opportunity meets preparation, or preparation meets opportunity.
Yeah.
And for me, that's always definitely been the case. And obviously, there's elements of luck thrown in, but more often than not, if you can get the artist to be won over on an idea you've got and prepared, and you kind of deliver what the label wants, then it's a cut, which is obviously what you're aiming for in a situation. I think if you're trying to create a show reel that you want to eventually take to publishers like Sam, then I mean, he'll give you great advice on this, but I'd say choose your 4 or 5 best moments, and basically try and maybe emulate. If you're trying to be a jobbing pop songwriter and cover all bases, try and emulate 4 or 5 different styles of pop music.
Yeah.
And do your absolute best to create. You know, if you're a producer, just do the best beats you can. If you've got access to good top liners and good singers, try and get some top lines on there. But if they're not good, just leave them off. Just hand into publishers just beats.
Yeah.
So I don't know if Sam wants to add on that.
I mean, actually, yeah. I mean, what's interesting is how, as a songwriter and a producer especially, how you break in to the world of kind of commercial music, how you get into rooms with artists. Because I think, you know, when Matt was starting out, and Richard, I mean, you know, I remember specifically with Matt, I mean, you had a cassette with some songs on.
Yeah.
You would send around to publishers.
Yeah.
I mean, those days are gone now, and actually it's better in a weird way. The world we live in now, if you want to break into the industry, is actually better, because of Spotify and the various different ways you can get your music out online. You can be putting your songs out to the world, and you shouldn't be just sending them to publishers. And I think one of the ways that you see a lot of young new writers and producers coming through is that people spot them on either their own records or records they've done for other people, and that may just be them and their mate putting something up on Spotify or on SoundCloud or whatever it is. But that's how people spot these young writers. So actually, I say to a lot of people, look, if you want to be a songwriter, the best thing to do is start putting your own stuff out. You know, and even if you don't want to be the artist in the long run, get your own, because there's no better way than showing off your wares than, you know, putting it out there yourself.
Yeah.
And because it's
Sam,
very.
May I ask, because I'm sure the kids who do the courses are doing that, right?
Yeah.
And I bet one of the things they'd love to know is, for A&R departments, what sort of number? Is there a number, a threshold number that becomes interesting to you? You know, do you need 100,000 monthly listeners on Spotify to become interesting?
The answer to that is no, and sometimes yes.
Yeah.
So, so actually, I mean, the answer is no. I mean, at the end of the day, no. We're always looking for something that we think is great.
Yeah.
And if it's got 0 listeners, it doesn't matter. If we think it's great, it's great. Well, no, it's not necessarily great just because we think it's great. But you know, what the point being is, it's always about listening to the music first and going with your gut reaction. Having said that, of course, if something suddenly pops up somewhere and it has 1 million spins on Spotify and it's come from nowhere, obviously you'd be crazy not to go, well, what's that? Why is everyone listening to that? If you can make that happen, then great. And there is a lot of, you know, these technologies now that record companies and publishing companies use, especially record companies, where they will have digital departments within the company that literally scan the internet looking for tracks and artists that are kind of, as they call it, popping off, you know, that are kind of but it would never, it's very, 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 very rare that something would be signed just because of the numbers.
Yeah.
And actually all it does is it just makes you want to have a look at it, and then it comes down to how, if you love the music or not. So it's always goes back to, do we think the music's great? How you get, you know, I mean, the problem, and the thing that everyone asks me is like, okay, yeah, I've made the track with my mate in the bedroom and we put it up on Spotify. How do we get people to listen to it? I mean, that is the age-old question. And sometimes, and actually, really, the reality is you may come up with a great video idea or something you can put on social media or something like that. But actually, what we tend to see is it's just word of mouth. And actually, it's a case of someone luckily listens to it and then goes to their friend, hey, have you heard this? This is really good. And then it just snowballs. And so in a weird way, it's never been any different. I mean, you can put stuff online, and sometimes it's like throwing stuff out into the ether. And sometimes you can put something online and 2 years later, suddenly it starts being picked up for some reason. So,
the time is
but
right.
really, but I think if you want to be a writer or a producer, the best thing to do is to find like-minded people. This is why these music courses are so great. Find like-minded people. Start making records with them. And now you can make a record on your you can make a record on your phone now, a really good record. So there's nothing stopping you from making those records and putting them out there. And that's the best way to really show off your wares as a writer and a producer.
I just wanted one last question. I really wanted to ask Rich, actually, about with the sort of West End theatre angle. It's about performers. And Rich, if you know, we have a lot of youngsters learning to perform in music theatre with RSL, and I wondered what advice you might give to young singers in particular about launching their careers, and what you're looking for in singers if you're auditioning singers, as I know you do. What are you listening for?
Yeah, my life is primarily auditioning singers, especially with Hamilton. We go through such a long process with that. You're listening to, of course, the raw ability of the singer. But what more so than that, because there are a lot of good singers out there, is a connection with the material. Whether that's with an understanding of the material, whether you're coming in my case for Hamilton, and you know the score inside out, or you're coming in and you don't know a song from it. You sing a song, you've thought about a particular direction you're going to go into with that song. So I've studied this song for a week. I'm going to make a choice that this character is thinking X, Y, and Z, and here's my version. And you're going to pin your master that to your mast and say that's my version of it. And you're going to go in, and very possibly the director or the musical director, whoever it may be, or casting director, will say to you, love it, that's great. And if you're being asked to do it again, then we smell something we like. But do it again and turn on its head your idea of how you wanted it. So instead of doing A, think about this character as B. And you need to have prepared for that and thought about other ways that it might be possible to do it that you won't have thought of, even if you've seen the show or you know the show, or it's a brand new show and you know nothing about it. There's so much more than, you know, the amount of time singers say to me, oh, I messed up that top D. I didn't sing that top D. could care less about that stuff. I know if you've had a cold. I know if you've not had enough sleep, or your audition is at 10 in the morning, but his is at 4 in the afternoon, so he's had time to warm up his voice. Don't worry, we've done it enough. We know that. If you can't sing that note, you can't sing that note. But if you sang it and it wasn't as good as it was in your bedroom last night, I know you can do it.
Yeah.
But can you deliver the character? Can you deliver the warmth, or the whatever that character displays? It's 30% the quality of the singing voice, and the rest, certainly with theatre. And I don't know that it's that different in pop music either. It's the soul behind it. It's the heart behind it. And trusting that we can do another take if it's in the studio for that sound, or we can do another rehearsal if it's theatre for that belt note, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So I think I'm sort of going on a bit, but I think it's not focusing too much on just the sound of your voice, but an understanding of what you're doing, who you're playing, and you might go in for a role that you might come in and sing for character A.
Yeah.
And we go, thank you very much. Now that we've seen and heard you, we think you're right for character D.
Yeah.
And here's 10 minutes to go and have a look at the script and song for character D. Come back in the room and give us that. It doesn't need to be. You're not going on stage tonight. It doesn't need to be right. You need to show us. It's a bit like, you do your maths exam when you're a kid, and you would get marks even if you were wrong. If your working was right, you get a mark. And it's the same idea. You don't have to present this part with guessing by osmosis what we want as a creative team. You've got to show willing that you can get there.
Brilliant. Look, thank you guys. It's been such a pleasure to see you all and see your success. I've been humbled watching you and your peers go into the music business and do pretty fantastically collectively as well as individually. And that is all down to you as individuals. It's not, but it's been wonderful as your old teacher to see your success. And I wish you continued great success.